The night air in Jollyville carried with it an unusual stillness, a quiet so profound it seemed to swallow even the faintest whisper of the wind. Mayor Harold Bumblebee stood beneath the flickering glow of the street lamp, his rumpled suit catching the pale light as he squinted into the shadows. He was clutching his trusty notepad, a lifeline amidst the chaos, and trying not to trip over the uneven cobblestones that had been the bane of his evening escapades. A sudden movement caught his eye. Behind the lamppost, a shadow flickered, elongated and twisted like a carnival mirror's reflection. Harold's heart skipped a beat, not from fear, but from the peculiar thrill that accompanied every clue in this bizarre case. The figure's grin was unmistakable, twisted into a grotesque smile beneath the eerie sheen of a painted mask. Though the phantom prankster had eluded capture, tonight he had revealed himself in a fleeting glimpse. "Well, Ilby," Harold muttered, adjusting his round glasses, "you're more dramatic than a custard pie in a Shakespeare play." He jotted down hurried notes, the scratch of his pen barely audible over the distant echo of a whoopee cushion deflating somewhere down the alleyway. It was as if the town itself was holding its breath, caught between laughter and dread. The next morning, Harold found himself in Clara Tumble's cluttered study, a riot of color amidst the town's gray uncertainty. Clara, ever the optimist, had gathered an assortment of photographs, old clown memorabilia, and faded posters of Jollyville's once celebrated circus troupe. The walls were adorned with pictures of smiling faces, painted noses, and the kind of joy that seemed almost foreign now. "Look at this," Clara said, handing Harold a photo of a young man in full clown regalia, his eyes twinkling behind the makeup. This was the phantom prankster before the mask. The real name was Felix Featherbottom. Harold frowned thoughtfully, tracing the outline of the man's painted smile with his finger. A clown with a past. I always thought clowns were just, well, clowns. But this Felix seems to have a story. Clara nodded. There was a scandal years ago, a prank gone wrong that changed everything. Felix disappeared after that, but the town never stopped talking about him. Harold's mind raced, weaving together the fragments of gossip, the cryptic notes left at prank scenes, and now this poignant history. Could it be that his pranks now are a cry for redemption? Or maybe a way to remind us of the laughter we've lost? Before he could ponder further, a firm knock interrupted their musings. Sheriff Bill Grumble entered, his broad frame filling the doorway, a crooked badge glinting dully on his chest. "Mayor," Bill grumbled, folding his arms. "This chasing shadows business has to stop. The town needs order, not more chaos." Harold met his gaze evenly, though a twitch at the corner of his mouth betrayed a hint of sarcasm. "Order, Sheriff, is just chaos with a fancy hat. Besides, these shadows might be the key to finding our missing clowns." Bill sighed, the tension between them as thick as the fog that sometimes rolled in from the nearby hills. "Just don't let your enthusiasm lead us into another mess." A sudden, unmistakable sound punctuated the moment. A loud puff echoed from beneath Bill's feet as a whoopee cushion deflated. Both men stared down, then exchanged a reluctant chuckle. The absurdity of it all was a reminder that even amidst conflict, Jollyville's spirit refused to be tamed. Later that evening, Harold found himself alone in the town square, the shadows long and strange beneath the silver gaze of the moon. Spread out before him was the latest clue, a painted mask, left deliberately at the scene of a prank. The mask's twisted grin seemed almost alive, whispering secrets Harold was only beginning to understand. He knelt, running a finger along the mask's cracked surface. "Felix," he murmured softly, "what are you trying to tell us?" The wind stirred, carrying with it the faintest echo of distant laughter, joy mingled with sorrow, chaos entwined with hope. Harold rose slowly, feeling the weight of the town's future pressing on his shoulders. In that moment, he realized that the phantom prankster was not merely a foe to be caught, but a mirror reflecting Jollyville's own fears and desires. Understanding Felix's pain and motives would be the key, not just to solving the mystery, but to restoring the laughter that bound the town together. With renewed determination, Harold tucked the mask carefully into his bag. Tomorrow, the investigation would take a new turn. For beneath the masks and shadows, the heart of Jollyville's chaos beat strong, and Harold intended to listen. As he walked home, the distant sounds of a clown horn honking and the soft clatter of juggling balls reminded him that the town's story was far from over. The night held its breath, waiting for the next act, and Harold Bumblebee was ready to take center stage. Jollyville's town square had never seen such a spectacle. The sun hung lazily in the sky, casting a warm glow over the gathering storm of brightly colored costumes, oversized shoes, and impossibly large red noses. The two clown factions, long divided by petty jealousies and competing slapstick styles, had come face to face in an impromptu showdown that threatened to turn the town's peculiar silence into outright pandemonium. Mayor Harold Bumblebee stood smack in the middle of the chaos, his perpetually rumpled suit looking even more disheveled than usual. His round glasses caught the sunlight as he squinted, clutching his trusty notepad like a lifebuoy in a sea of custard pies and honking horns. Harold's mouth twitched in a half-smile, half-grimace. "All right, everyone," he began, his voice a mixture of determined authority and mild panic. "Let's try to keep this, civil. We're all here because we want to find the missing clowns, yes." A chorus of honks and whistles answered him, but it was far from a harmonious agreement. On one side, the Spangles, decked out in glittering sequins and star-patterned bow ties, pointed accusing fingers and waved squirting flowers with theatrical flair. On the other, the Bumbles, proudly sporting polka dots and oversized suspenders, retorted with exaggerated pantomimes and slapstick pratfalls that involved more banana peels than anyone thought physically possible. The air buzzed with tension and anticipation, the scent of popcorn mingling with the faintest hint of seltzer. Harold's knees buckled slightly as a well-aimed custard pie sailed past his ear, splattering harmlessly against a lamppost. "Right," he muttered, scribbling quickly. "Let's hear it then. Why all this fuss?" From the Spangles' corner, a tall clown with a painted teardrop under one eye stepped forward, voice dripping with melodramatic sorrow. "The Bumbles have been sabotaging our routines for months, exploding whoopee cushions at the wrong moments, switching our juggling pins for rubber chickens. It's an insult to the art." From the Bumbles' side, a stout, red-nosed clown with a permanently mischievous grin retorted, "And the Spangles think they're the only ones who can make people laugh. They've been stealing our best pranks and hogging the spotlight." Harold blinked, struggling to piece together the volley of accusations. It was like trying to decode a slapstick Morse code. Clara Tumbles, his ever-optimistic assistant with her fiery red hair and colorful scarves, stepped up beside him. Balancing 3 rubber chickens with practiced ease, she raised a hand, calling for calm. "Everyone," Clara said, her voice clear and warm amid the chaos. "We were all part of Jollyville's unique spirit. The pranks, the laughter, the chaos, they are our town's heartbeat. But right now, we need to remember why we're here. The clowns are missing. This rivalry, as entertaining as it might be, isn't helping us find them." The factions paused, if only for a moment, the tension momentarily diffused by Clara's earnest plea. Harold noticed the flickers of doubt and regret in their painted eyes, the way their hands stopped their frantic gestures. Just then, Sheriff Bill Grumble, tall and broad-shouldered with his permanent frown and crooked badge, lumbered into the fray. His voice was gruff but carried a surprising hint of humor. "All right, enough clowning around," he growled, stepping between the factions. "If we were going to sort this mess out, we need order." But even Bill's stern presence couldn't prevent the inevitable pratfall. As he took a firm step forward, his boot caught on a rogu banana peel, sending him sprawling spectacularly onto the cobblestones. For a heart-stopping moment, the crowd was silent, then laughter erupted, a tidal wave of amused relief that swept through the square. Harold chuckled, rubbing his aching ribs. "See, even the sheriff can't resist a good pratfall," he quipped. The laughter worked like a bomb. The clowns exchanged sheepish looks, the absurdity of their feud laid bare by the slapstick spectacle. Slowly, the factions began to mingle, sharing stories of past pranks and misadventures, their rivalries now tinged with nostalgia rather than bitterness. Yet, nestled in the shadow of a nearby alley, a figure watched the scene unfold. The phantom prankster, obscured by the half-light and his painted mask, leaned back against the brick wall, his twisted grin barely visible beneath the flickering street lamp. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of satisfaction and something darker, perhaps regret, or something yet unspoken. As the townsfolk started to unite, the phantom's lips curled into a whisper. "Let the game continue," he murmured, vanishing into the night. Back in the square, Harold took a deep breath, the weight of the day settling on his shoulders. The rivalry was out in the open now, a tangled mess of emotions and misunderstandings, but at least it was no longer hidden. And with that revelation came hope that the clowns could come home, and that Jollyville could reclaim its laughter. "All right," Harold said, lifting his notepad with renewed resolve, "let's figure out what comes next. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that chaos might be our town's middle name, but it's also the key to finding the truth." And with that, the crowd began to disperse, the first tentative steps toward reconciliation echoing through the cobbled streets. Even as the night whispered promises of more surprises to come. The day began innocuously enough, with Harold Bumblebee shuffling into his cluttered office, his perpetually rumpled suit barely dodging the swinging doorframe. His trusty notepad dangled precariously from a pen clenched between his teeth, a habit he hadn't quite shaken since his schoolteacher days. The air was thick with anticipation, or perhaps that was just the lingering scent of seltzer from yesterday's mishap. Harold's fingers trembled slightly as they brushed against a curious object resting atop his desk, a large red button, conspicuously out of place amid the usual piles of paperwork and half-eaten donuts. Clara Tumbles, ever bright-eyed and impossibly nimble, had found it nestled inside the abandoned clown car the day before. Now it sat there like a ticking bomb of mischief. "You don't suppose we should press it?" Harold muttered, half to himself, half to Clara, who was perched on the edge of his desk, juggling a trio of colorful balls with practiced ease. "Only one way to find out." Clara grinned, her fingers never missing a beat. With a deep breath and more caution than confidence, Harold's index finger descended and landed squarely on the button. The moment his fingertip made contact, a loud, comical honk echoed through the office, followed by a burst of confetti cannons erupting in the town square outside. Through the window, a kaleidoscope of colors rained down, swirling in the morning light like a bizarre, celebratory snowstorm. "Oh no," Harold whispered, eyes wide as the first blasts of chaos unfurled beyond the glass. And then the pranks began in earnest. Whoopee cushions deflated simultaneously in the local diner, their unmistakable sounds causing a ripple of startled gasps and reluctant chuckles from patrons mid-coffee sip. A chain reaction of squirting seltzer bottles erupted from hidden corners, drenching unsuspecting shopkeepers who responded with a mixture of indignation and grudging amusement. Sheriff Bill Grumble was the next to enter the scene, his broad shoulders filling the doorway as he stepped gingerly over a strategically placed banana peel. His expression was a perfect balance of exasperation and reluctant amusement, especially after an errant seltzer spray caught him unexpectedly, his habitual frown faltering into a rueful grin. "Mayor," Sheriff Bill grumbled, "this better not be one of your harebrained schemes." "I assure you, Bill," Harold replied, attempting dignity as he wiped confetti from his glasses, "this was entirely accidental." Meanwhile, Clara's sharp eyes had caught something amidst the swirling confetti. Kneeling to scoop up a handful, she noticed an unusual pattern in the colored paper, an arrangement too deliberate to be random. Her fingers traced the shapes like a cryptologist deciphering an ancient script. "Harold, look at this," she called out, her voice tinged with excitement. "It's a message." "A code." Harold leaned over, squinting at the intricate shapes and colors. The confetti formed a series of symbols and letters, a playful yet deliberate puzzle left by the phantom prankster. It was their first tangible clue in days, a breadcrumb trail leading deeper into the mystery. As the town roared with laughter and groans from the endless pranks, an uneasy undercurrent pulsed beneath the chaos. The line between joy and fear blurred with every burst of confetti and every unexpected squirt of seltzer. Yet, in this pandemonium, Harold felt a spark of hope. The phantom prankster was speaking to them in riddles and jokes, in chaos and color. "We were closer than ever," Harold said, determination hardening his voice. "Now we just have to follow the trail before the next prank finds us." Clara nodded, juggling balls momentarily forgotten in her hands. "And maybe next time, let's try not to set off the whole town." Harold chuckled, already tripping over a rogue banana peel as the confetti storm continued to dance around them. No promises. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over Jollyville's confetti-strewn streets, the town teetered on the edge of hysteria and hilarity. Somewhere in the shadows, the phantom prankster watched, the twisted grin hidden beneath a painted mask, knowing the game was far from over. Harold's accidental prank had turned the investigation inside out, but it had also illuminated a path forward, a path paved with laughter, chaos, and the unyielding spirit of a town unwilling to be silenced. And so, with the echoes of laughter ringing in his ears, and the scent of seltzer lingering in the air, Harold prepared for the next move in this absurd, uproarious dance of shadows and smiles. The moon hung low over Jollyville, casting a silvery glow that made the town square look like the stage for some grand theatrical farce. Flickering neon signs buzzed softly, their erratic light matching the jittery energy that crackled in the air. Mayor Harold Bumblebee adjusted his rumpled suit, his iconic round glasses reflecting the kaleidoscope of colors from the scattered prank props strewn about the cobblestones. Slippery banana peels, deflated whoopee cushions, and a suspiciously large rubber chicken lying in wait. Across the square, the phantom prankster emerged from the shadows like a specter of mischief incarnate. His painted mask twisted into a grin that was equal parts menacing and mischievous, a dark silhouette outlined by the murky fog rolling in. The air was thick with anticipation and the faint scent of seltzer water. This was it, the final showdown, the moment where chaos and order would collide in a spectacle no one in Jollyville would forget. "Well, Mayor Bumblebee," the phantom's voice echoed, dripping with theatrical flair, "I must say you've been quite the persistent pest. But tonight, the joke's on you." Harold swallowed nervously, clutching his notepad like a shield. "Phantom prankster," he began, voice steadier than he felt, "this town needs its laughter. Your silence has been deafening. Why all this chaos?" The phantom chuckled, a sound like a squeaky horn mixed with a sinister whisper. "Because, dear Harold, sometimes a little chaos is the only way to wake a town from complacency. You all depend too much on the clowns to do the laughing for you. It's time you found your own joy." Before Harold could respond, a sudden burst of confetti bombs exploded between them, raining down glitter and streamers. Harold instinctively ducked, only to slip on a conveniently placed banana peel, arms flailing wildly as he crashed into a stack of oversized rubber pies. The sound of splattering cream echoed like a symphony of slapstick disaster. From the sidelines, Clara Tumbles weaved through the mayhem, her bright red hair a vivid flame against the chaos. Juggling glowing balls with practiced ease, she cheered, "Come on, Harold!" "Remember, laughter is our weapon." Harold grinned despite the sticky mess. "Right, Clara, time to turn the tables." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a squirting flower, pressing it so that a jet of water shot towards the phantom, who dodged with a nimble leap worthy of a circus acrobat. The battle quickly devolved into a carnival of pratfalls and gags, whoopee cushions triggered at the worst moments, oversized shoes causing comical stumbles, and a barrage of joy buzzers sparking surprise yelps. Sheriff Bill Grumble, ever the gruff guardian of order, tried to intervene, his stern voice booming, "Enough of this nonsense!" but his effort was thwarted when he stepped on a whoopee cushion hidden beneath his boot. The sudden noise startled him so much that he nearly toppled over, breaking into an involuntary, begrudging chuckle. "See," Clara called out, "even the sheriff can't resist the cows." As the duel wore on, the phantom's mask slipped momentarily, revealing a glimpse of wary eyes beneath the painted grin. Harold noticed the flicker of pain, the hint of a man burdened by exclusion and longing. "You're not just a prankster," Harold said, panting from the exertion but steady now. "You're someone who wants to be seen, to belong." The phantom paused, the carnival cacophony fading into a poignant silence broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. Slowly, his mask was removed, revealing a face marked by years of laughter and tears, a former clown who had once been beloved, now hidden behind the guise of mischief. "I only wanted to remind you," he said softly, "that laughter isn't just a trick, it's a bond." Harold extended a hand, and after a moment's hesitation, the phantom shook it, the tension dissolving like mist under morning sun. Together, they turned to the crowd of townsfolk who had gathered, caught between fear and curiosity. With a nod from the phantom, the missing clowns reappeared, emerging from hidden corners and alleyways, their colorful costumes brighter than ever. The town erupted in joyous applause, the air thick with renewed energy and hope. Harold, still sticky from pie cream but beaming, realized that the chaos had not been the enemy, it was the very heart of Jollyville's spirit. As the night unfolded into a riotous celebration filled with laughter, music, and playful pranks, Harold caught Clara's eye and shared a knowing smile. The town was whole again, united by the absurdity that had threatened to divide it. And in the distance, the phantom prankster vanished into the night, his mission complete, but his presence forever a reminder that sometimes the greatest order comes from embracing a little chaos. With the final echo of laughter ringing through the streets, Harold couldn't help but wonder what prank-filled adventure awaited them next, because in Jollyville, the joke was never truly over. The moonlit showdown had not only settled the mystery, but had also woven a new chapter in the town's history, where laughter and fear danced hand in hand, and where chaos was both a challenge and a cure. Harold's journey from bumbling mayor to clever problem solver had culminated in a revelation that the absurdity of life, with all its pratfalls and surprises, was the glue that held Jollyville together. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of pink and gold, the mayor looked out over the town square, now vibrant and alive. The clowns were back, the people smiling, and the spirit of Jollyville gleaming brighter than any neon sign. Harold tucked his notepad into his pocket, ready for whatever whimsical chaos the future might bring. The morning sun rose gently over the rooftops of Jollyville, casting a golden hue that seemed almost too serene for a town recently plunged into such uproarious turmoil. But today was different. Today, the streets thrummed with a familiar, if riotous, energy. Colorful flags fluttered in the breeze, and the unmistakable honk of a honking horn pierced the air, heralding the triumphant return of the town's beloved prankster clowns. Mayor Harold Bumblebee stood on the steps of the town hall, his rumpled suit slightly less disheveled than usual, a small but proud smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. His round glasses caught the light as he surveyed the scene before him, a parade of clowns of every stripe and spot, juggling balls, squirting seltzer, and tripping over their own oversized shoes in a joyous celebration that was quintessentially Jollyville. The townsfolk lined the streets, their faces alight with laughter and relief. Children darted between the clown antics, squealing with delight as a particularly daring clown balanced a custard pie precariously on his nose before flinging it high into the air. The pie sailed in a perfect arc, landing with a splat on the grumpy face of an elderly man who promptly burst into laughter himself, the sound infectious and pure. Harold cleared his throat, clutching his trusty notepad, the pages slightly crumpled from hours of frantic scribbling and accidental spills of lemonade. The crowd hushed expectantly as he raised a hand, a gesture that was both official and awkward, much like Harold himself. "Ladies and gentlemen, clowns and pranksters," he began, his voice carrying unevenly at first, but growing steadier with each word. "We gather not just to celebrate the return of our town's most colorful citizens, but to acknowledge the chaos and laughter that binds us together." A ripple of applause swept through the crowd, accompanied by the sudden and perfectly timed blast of a whoopee cushion from the front row, eliciting a collective chuckle. "This past ordeal," Harold continued, "has taught me more than any school or seminar ever could. I have learned that chaos is not our enemy, it is the dance partner of order. Laughter is not merely noise. It is the melody that carries us through uncertainty." Behind him, Clara Tumbles bounced up beside him, her bright red hair catching stray beams of sunlight, her colorful scarves fluttering like flags caught in a gentle storm. She caught Harold's eye and gave him a thumbs up, her infectious optimism a beacon of the spirit that had carried them both through the investigation. After the speech, the crowd erupted once more, the clowns leading the charge down the street in a frenzied parade of juggling, pratfalls, and honking noses. Harold found himself swept up in the reverie, his earlier trepidation dissolving into genuine delight. He caught sight of Sheriff Bill Grumble standing a little off to the side, arms crossed and lips twitching suspiciously. But then, to Harold's surprise, the sheriff's frown softened, and a small red clown nose appeared pinned comically to his uniform. The reluctant smile that followed was as warm as the morning sun. Later, backstage in the colorful chaos of juggling balls, squirting flowers, and oversized shoes, Harold and Clara shared a quiet moment. The noise of the celebration faded into the background as they exchanged a knowing smile. "We did it," Clara said softly, juggling a bright yellow ball with effortless grace. Harold nodded, feeling the weight of the journey lift from his shoulders. "I never thought I'd say this, but I think I'm starting to understand why this town needs its clowns. They're not just about the pranks or the laughter, they're about reminding us to not take life too seriously." Clara tossed him a ball, which he fumbled with a clumsy grin. "Maybe chaos isn't so bad after all." As the sun climbed higher, the parade continued, winding through the streets of Jollyville like a living, breathing embodiment of the town's spirit. The clown's laughter echoed off the walls, a jubilant soundtrack to a community reborn. Mayor Harold Bumblebee, once the hapless bureaucrat, now stood as a symbol of resilience and unity. He had learned that sometimes the greatest order comes from embracing a bit of delightful disorder. And as Jollyville's laughter rang out into the afternoon, one thing was certain: the town's next prank-filled chapter was just beginning. But as Harold gazed at the horizon, a faint shadow flickered in the corner of his eye, a reminder that in a town like Jollyville, even the quietest moments can be the calm before the next storm of hilarity. And with that thought, Harold couldn't help but smile. After all, in Jollyville, the show must go on. Jollyville awoke that morning as it had countless times before, with the sun casting a golden glow over its pastel-painted rooftops, and the faint, familiar sound of honking horns and laughter threading through the air. But this was no ordinary dawn, it was a dawn of return. The clowns, once vanished into thin air, had come back, bringing with them a whirlwind of color, noise, and joyful pandemonium that transformed the sleepy town into a festival of mirth and mischief. Mayor Harold Bumblebee stood at the edge of the town square, his short stature barely visible amid the bustling crowd. His round glasses perched precariously on his nose, and his perpetually rumpled suit seemed to have gathered a new layer of crumples overnight, as if the very fabric of his clothing had absorbed the chaotic energy that now pulsed through Jollyville. Clutched tightly in his hand was his notepad, pages filled with scribbles, sketches, and the occasional doodle of a banana peel. The square was a kaleidoscope of vibrant costumes and painted faces. Clowns juggled brightly colored balls, their laughter ringing clear and infectious. Whoopee cushions punctuated the air with well-timed blasts and the scent of popcorn, cotton candy. and something distinctly reminiscent of rubber chickens mingled in the breeze. Above it all, banners fluttered, each emblazoned with cheerful slogans, "Welcome back, Jollyville's finest." And chaos is our kind of order. Harold's eyes scanned the crowd until they found Clara Tumbles, her bright red hair a beacon amid the sea of faces. She was effortlessly juggling 3 balls, her colorful scarves trailing behind her like ribbons caught in a gentle wind. Spotting Harold, she grinned and tossed a ball his way, which he caught with a surprised yelp. "You're getting better," Clara teased, a sparkle in her eyes. "Maybe by next year you'll be ready for the big leagues." Harold chuckled, adjusting his glasses. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm still mastering the art of not tripping over my own feet." Sheriff Bill Grumble stood nearby, arms crossed and brow furrowed, watching the festivities with a mixture of skepticism and reluctant amusement. The permanent frown that usually carved lines across his broad face softened ever so slightly as a balloon animal bounced harmlessly off his shoulder, eliciting a rare chuckle from the gruff lawman. "Don't let it go to your head, Bill," Clara called over, catching his eye. "You're secretly a fan." Bill grumbled something unintelligible, but the twinkle in his eye betrayed his words. He reached down and picked up a squeaky rubber chicken, squeezing it until it let out a high-pitched squawk. The crowd erupted in laughter, and for a moment, the sheriff's stern demeanor melted into the joyous chaos around him. At the center of the square, a makeshift stage had been erected, adorned with twinkling fairy lights and a banner reading Mayor's speech. Harold cleared his throat, the cacophony of honks, whistles, and laughter fading into expectant silence. He adjusted his rumpled suit and shuffled his notes before stepping up to the microphone. "Good morning, Jollyville," he began, voice wavering slightly but gaining strength with each word. "I must say, it's quite surreal standing here today, not just because there are fewer banana peels to slip on, but because we've come through something extraordinary together." The crowd leaned in, hanging on his every word. When our beloved clowns disappeared, it felt as though the very heart of our town had gone silent. But today, with laughter restored and chaos embraced, I see that the spirit of Jollyville is stronger than ever. He paused, glancing at Clara, Sheriff Bill, and the returning clowns who nodded encouragingly. "We've learned that chaos and laughter aren't just random acts of silliness, they're the glue that holds us together. They remind us not to take ourselves too seriously, to find joy even in the unexpected, and to face fear with a smile." A cheer erupted, balloons soaring into the sky, and Harold allowed himself a small, triumphant smile. As the speech concluded, the festivities resumed with renewed vigor. Harold found himself wandering toward Daisy McFizzle's joke shop, where the air was thick with the scent of bubble gum and the faint pop of whoopee cushions. Daisy greeted him with a flourish, handing over a bright red clown nose. "For you, Mayor Bumblebee," she said with a wink. "Every hero needs a proper disguise." He placed the nose on, earning a delighted laugh from Clara, who was nearby practicing a new juggling routine. "See, you're a natural," she said, tossing him another juggling ball. Harold caught it, feeling a warmth spread through him, not just from the laughter around, but from the sense of belonging that had blossomed during the long ordeal. A shadow passed nearby, and Harold glanced up to see Millie the mime, offering an exaggerated bow and a silent thumbs up. The day stretched on with pranks and laughter, the town's beloved chaos restored. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm amber glow, Harold stood beside Clara and Sheriff Bill, watching the clowns perform a grand finale of juggling flaming torches, pie-throwing contests, and synchronized honking. "You know," Bill said gruffly, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad the clowns are back." Harold smiled, feeling the weight of his journey lift. "Neither did I," he admitted, "but I've learned that a little chaos is exactly what we need to keep life interesting, and laughter is the best way to face it." As the crowd roared with applause and the night sky filled with fireworks shaped like rubber chickens and squirting flowers, Harold knew that Jollyville's story was far from over. There would be more pranks, more mishaps, and certainly more banana peels to slip on, but now he was ready. After all, in a town like Jollyville, the next chapter was always just a laugh away.